Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here to talk about my Theatre A Thon reading plans. I will link my announcement down below in case you missed it, but Theatre A Thon is basically what it sounds like. It is a musical theatre based readathon, and the goal is that you kind of pick and choose whichever prompts you want, one from each category, so that you can kind of create or build your own musical. And I am one of the co-hosts along with McKenna from MacBooks, Taylor from Page Screen Taylor, and Hannah from Lynn Hermione over on Instagram. All of their announcements are already up, so I will link all of those in the description as well. And I think by the time this video goes up, I think we will have finalized our tracker graphics so that you can kind of keep track of which books you've read and which prompts you fill. So I will also put that information in the description box. And like I said, we encourage mixing and matching or picking one musical and doing all of the prompts for that one. Just doing as many as you want. Honestly, we want this to be pretty easy, pretty low-key, and just fun. Because I am ridiculous, I'm going to try and fill every prompt from all four of the musicals. The musical that I'm representing is Hadestown, so that is the one that I came up with prompts for. McKenna is doing Heathers, Taylor is doing The Phantom of the Opera, and Hannah is doing Come From Away. So be sure to check out their announcements if that sounds interesting to you, or just to kind of see what the other prompt options are, because they're really fun. Also, the day after I filmed my announcement video, I think, is when the prompts for Readathon were announced, so I'm gonna be throwing that group book in here as well, because it's one that I already planned on getting to. You also see as we go through that because of the sequelathon and middle grade March that is going on, I kind of incorporated that into some of my picks as well. But yeah, I'm really excited about all of these. Let's get into it. We're going to start with the TBR for my musical, which is Hadestown, as I said, a show that I very deeply love. And we're going to use one book for two prompts, and that is the character prompt, which is Read a book with a female main character whom you would describe as a survivor, and also the aesthetic prompt, which is to read a book that feels glamorous with a dark side. And the book I'm using for those is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I'm actually currently reading this one with my friends Hannah, Kiera, and Kelly, so I'm just going to continue reading this throughout the month of March, and I am liking it so far. I'm finding Sarah a little less compelling than Mary Lennox, even though Mary is like just the worst little brat at the beginning of The Secret Garden, so I don't know what that says about me. But I am liking this, and I hope to enjoy it more as we go through the story. Like I said, I do also want to get to the group book for Readathon, which I don't normally do group books, but this is one that I've been trying to force myself to read for a long time. And that is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I'm using this for my song prompt, which is How Long? An Epic Part 2. That is to read a book with an unusual romance, because I have heard that about this book. I feel like everyone on BookTube has given the synopsis for this book multiple times, so I'm not even gonna bother. Basically, I've been putting this off because the more I hear about it, the less certain I am I'm going to like it. I bought this a couple years ago when the hype was going really strong, and I thought I would enjoy it, so we'll see. Really nervous about this one, but I want to like make myself read this month because it's just been too long. I need to figure out how I feel about it so I can stop worrying about it. And then the remaining three prompts are the one for setting, read a book that mixes genres. I like how I'm referring to my notes for like my own prompts that I came up with for the readathon, but it's been that kind of day. Pop culture, which is to read a book from an indie or small publisher, which is not one of the big five publishers. So those are Hachette, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Penguin Random House, and Simon & Schuster. And the story prompt, which is to read a retelling. And for all three of those, I'm going to be reading The Navigator by Erin Michelle Skye and Stephen Brown. This is a sequel to The Wendy, which was one of my most surprising books of last year. I really, really loved it. And I wasn't surprised because I thought I wasn't going to like it, but I just hadn't heard very much about it at all. And the only thing I knew about it was that it was a Peter Pan retelling. So I didn't really know what to expect going in, but I absolutely loved it. I loved the writing and the characterization. I'm really excited to see where the story goes in this book, and I really love Wendy as a main character. I think I said when I talked about that book last time that she's a character who it would have been very easy to make her feel like overly perfect or boring, but for some reason she's not. I don't know, there's just something about her that is just so endearing and wonderful and lovable that even though other characters are like kind of obsessed with her, you sort of get it because she's great. I don't know if any of that made sense, but I'm really excited to get to that book. And then moving on to McKenna's prompts for the Heathers. I love that the two songs she featured in her video were Dead Girl Walking and Candy Store, because those are the only two songs I own from that show, and I just love them so much. I love those songs. So the setting prompt is to read a book that is set in the state that you're from, and the pop culture prompt for that musical is Heathers is all over TikTok, a short form video app. Read a short book. And I'm combining those prompts and reading Beau and Bet, a modern retelling of Beauty and the Beast by Catherine Burla. I think the subtitle tells you what you need to know about this one, but I'm intrigued because I think the Beast character is the female character, which is not something we see a lot. I think she's still like beautiful and popular and everything, but I think personality-wise, Beauty and Beast are kind of switched. By the way, I kind of didn't explain this specifically at the beginning, but when I say take one prompt from every category, those are the ones I mentioned earlier, which is characters, setting, song, pop culture, story, and aesthetic. So that's why I keep referring to those categories as I talk about the other musicals. I'm sorry, this is a very confusing video. Please check out my co-host because they are much more organized when it comes to explaining this than I am. Then the character prompt is Veronica, and that is to read a book with a character who got what they wanted, but not in the way they expected. And for that one, I have a sequel and a middle grade book, and that is Wednesdays in the Tower by Jessica Day George. This is a sequel to Tuesdays at the Castle, which I really enjoyed when I read it in December. Jessica Day George is just, at this point, she's one of my favorite middle grade writers. I just really enjoy the stories she tells and the characters and everything. And the setting for the series is a castle that is sort of semi-sentient. It kind of moves rooms around and it adds things, and it always knows the right thing to add, even if the human characters don't know why it's there necessarily. So that's why I'm picking it for this prompt, is because I feel like that kind of fits in with the castle. It's like it gives you what you want or what you need, but you can't always figure out why until later on in the book. I don't really know anything about this book in the series and what specifically is the plot for this one, but I'm guessing there's some kind of dragon or griffin egg that hatches. The song prompt is Dead Girl Walking, and that is to read a smutty or steamy book. And the story prompt is to read a book that deals with some kind of death. So that could be a character death, like a murder mystery, anything like that. It's kind of weird to combine those two prompts, I just realized, but I'm doing it with one book, and that is The Little Bookshop of Lonely Hearts by Annie Darling. Our main character, she works at this cute little bookshop, and the owner of the bookshop dies and leaves it to her in her will. So that's where the death comes in. And this is an adult contemporary romance, so there is a love interest who I think is like the owner's grandson or nephew or something, who's like threatening to close down the bookshop if it doesn't make enough money or something. So they have kind of like an antagonistic relationship that I'm sure turns into romance, and because this is an adult book involving romance, I assume they're gonna have sex at some point, because it just kind of seems like that's the way that the adult age range goes, is if there's any romantic subplot, even if it's not specifically in the romance genre, it's gonna involve a sex scene of some kind, which are generally not my favorite scenes to read, so we'll see how I feel about this. You can see I have my bookmark in it because I tried to start reading it a few weeks ago, and the love interest made a really bad first impression on me, so we'll see how I feel about this one, but I am enjoying the bookshop parts. And then the aesthetic question is to either choose your favorite Heather or to complete the quiz that McKenna linked, which is to tell you which Heather you are, and then whichever Heather or Veronica character you are, that like iconic color you're supposed to use. You're supposed to read a book with that color on the cover. And I got yellow, which is Heather McNamara. I had to look that up because I don't know this show very well. So I have to read a book with yellow on the cover. I was taking the quiz and one of the questions got like real dark. It was asking you like how often you think about death and stuff like that. And I was really like thrown off by that until I remembered like literally what the premise of the Heathers musical is. So that's on me. But anyway, I am finally going to read The Mistwick School of Musicraft by Jessica Corey. And as beautiful and colorful as this cover is, yellow is probably the color that shows up least. Like, it's barely on this cover, but I wanted to include this in my TBR because I've been wanting to read this for ages, and sometimes I have to like officially assign myself a book so that I finally get around to reading it, even though I've been wanting to read it forever. I don't know why I'm like this. And then for Hannah's musical, she's doing Come From Away, which is a show that I haven't even listened to the album for yet, like the cast recording, but I'm already so emotional about it. Like, I was describing the show to someone the other day and I almost started crying. So I feel like it's going to be a favorite for me when I finally get around to it. I'm going to be combining 4 of the prompts from that one of which is aesthetic. Actors in Come From Away all play multiple characters, and you're supposed to read a book fulfilling multiple prompts, which I am definitely doing. Number 2, setting. Read a book featuring strong friendship or found family. Song, Me in the Sky. Read a book by and about women. And number 5, plot. Read a book dealing with an important topic from an unusual perspective. And that is a holdover from Readathon last month that I really wanted to get to, but I wasn't sure I'd be able to get to during that month. And that is Among the Red Stars by Gwen C. Katz. This is about the Night Witches, which were a Russian group of airwomen during World War II, I believe, that the Nazis found so unbeatable that they referred to them as the Night Witches, which I think is so cool. I'm really excited to learn about these amazing women. And I think this definitely qualifies as a like topic from an unusual perspective because there's a lot of books and content about World War II, but I don't remember ever reading a book specifically about this group of airwomen, so really looking forward to that. Number 1 is the character prompt, and that is Ali. Read a book about a character who faces discrimination. And that's another one from Readathon that I didn't get to, which is Incantation by Alice Hoffman. This is set in Spain, I think during the time of the Spanish Inquisition, and I believe our main character is Jewish, so unfortunately this book definitely is going to be about discrimination and the really horrible treatment of the Jewish people by the Spanish Christians, so really interested to see how this goes. I think it's going to be probably a very heavy book. And then the last prompt is number 4, pop culture, and that is to read a hopeful book. And for that one, I have a book I currently have checked out from my library, which was kind of an impulse. I went in to pick up a hold or two and I left with a ton of books as always seems to happen lately, and that is The Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo by F.C. Yee. I have heard absolutely glowing reviews from Rebecca at Tea Hags and Jocelyn from Maggie with a Book. I've just heard this book is just like so sweet and funny and hopeful and just charming and lovely. I'm so excited. I know this deals with Chinese mythology, and I think it's one of those, like our main character, she discovers that she has this role to play in fighting these mythological monsters, and she's also trying to be a normal high schooler. And I've heard that there's a really cute romance. Like, I've just heard so many wonderful things about this book, and I'm excited to finally get to it. I'm going to end with Taylor's prompts for Phantom of the Opera, which is one of my favorite shows. I love it so much. I know, like, people feel it's kind of played out, which I understand, but I am trash. And one book I'm going to use for this is actually a reread, and that is to combine the setting and aesthetic prompts, which are to read a book that features multiple timelines and to read a Gothic novel. And Taylor talked about how you don't have to interpret Gothic like quite so literally, and I'm going to be rereading Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is the absolutely beautiful 80th anniversary edition that my mom surprised me with for, I think it was Christmas one year. And I haven't actually reread this copy yet. I've been wanting to reread this book for a while. This definitely qualifies as a Gothic feeling story. And it does kind of feature multiple timelines because it sort of starts with a present day section, but most of the book I think is a flashback to the main character going to Manderley, and when she gets swept off her feet by this mysterious and kind of sinister feeling to the reader guy, and you find out about his past, like this woman Rebecca, who he was previously married to, and I just love the atmosphere of Daphne du Maurier's books that I have read so far, and I really, really enjoyed this one when I read it, so can't wait to come back to it, like I've been wanting to do for a long time. The character prompt is to read a book from the perspective of a villain. I'm kind of being a little bit loose with this one because I think I'm going to use Strange the Dreamer. I think there is a point of view, sorry for the screaming children you can hear, don't know where they are. I think there's a point of view chapter from a villainous character in Strange the Dreamer based on what I've heard from people. If not, I'll try to find another book that fits that. And the song prompt is The Phantom of the Opera, read a book with an unreliable narrator. So that's a trope I have a hard time with, so I'm actually really proud of myself for the way I interpreted it. And that is Everblaze. This is the next book in the Keeper of the Lost City series by Shannon Messenger. Sophie is our main character, and she's unreliable in the sense that she's still figuring out people, like why people hid memories from her. This is a middle grade fantasy series that I've really been loving, and I think the way that her memory loss was done, it can be a very frustrating trope, but the way it was handled in this book so far, or in this series so far, is not frustrating because I think you get enough answers along the way that it doesn't feel like the author is just keeping information back from you the whole time. So really looking forward to this. I've been loving the series. The prompt for pop culture is to read a book with a notoriously terrible adaptation, which, like, I know that the Phantom of the Opera movie from 2004, I know it's not the best. I know there's a lot of problems with it, but I love it. It was the first way I encountered the Phantom of the Opera story, and now I love the musical and the novel and just like every iteration of it. So I have a soft spot in my heart for it, and I just genuinely enjoy it too. But for that one, I'm doing our Austen Anonymous book, which is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I have seen many adaptations of Pride and Prejudice, some of which I absolutely despise, which I don't have time to go into now. I'm thinking of doing a whole video on like ranking the adaptations of Pride and Prejudice I've seen because I have a lot of feelings about it. But speaking of being trash for popular things, I love Pride and Prejudice. And finally, the plot prompt is to read a book with a sympathetic monster. And for that one, I have Wishes and Wellingtons by Julie Berry. I actually won this in a giveaway from the author, and I am so excited to get to this. This is set in, is it Victorian London maybe? But a young girl at an orphanage or a boarding school finds a genie, and I assume adventure ensues from there. And I think the way the genie is described seems a little bit like a monster or a scary character, but I feel like, as with generally happens with these kinds of stories, I think we're going to get to know this genie a lot better throughout the book, and I hope they're going to end up being a more sympathetic character. So really excited to get to this. Julie Berry wrote my favorite book I read last year, which was Lovely War, and considering I read, it was like 220 something. I read a lot of books last year, so that is definitely saying something, and I just can't wait to get to this. It's actually an arc, but the book technically came out last year on Audible, like exclusively for Audible or something, and the physical book will be coming out this year in quite a few months, so I'm reading this very early, but the fact that it's already out excuses it, maybe. Okay, everybody, so those are all of the books I am tentatively hoping to read. I already know I'm not going to get through all of them, but I want I wanted to have a lot of options, and I wanted to try and cover most of the prompts if I could. I don't know if you guys can see this. I have this like giant mess of books strewn over the bed next to me here. Maybe I'll try and stack them for a thumbnail, maybe not. Please comment down below and let me know if you guys are participating in the Theatre A Thon, which track you're doing, or if you're going to mix and match or kind of decide as you go, or if you're making the questionable decision like me, which is to try and complete all the prompts. We'll see how that goes. But I'm so excited for this. I hope you can join in. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!